Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of his fight this weekend, his title defense, Nick Ball promises something special, but TJ Doheny guarantees a hard night. Nick Ball is promised to deliver another special night when he fights veteran former champion TJ Doheny in Liverpool on Saturday. The WBA featherweight champion, 21-0 with 1 draw, 12 knockouts, will be boxing in front of his hometown fans, and his promoter, Frank Warren, promised more big things for the English city following Saturday's show, which is largely filled with the Liverpudlian talent. Ball and Doheny had talked plenty of smack at the press conference to announce their fight, but at Thursday's final press conference, neither gave much away. They always talk a big game at these press conferences, but I don't care who he is, what he's done, who he's been in with, what he's done in his last fight. It's all irrelevant, said Ball, 28. It's in the past. He's fighting me on Saturday night, so I'm just focused on that. Asked whether or not he was looking to produce a better performance against Doheny than Japanese star Naoya Inoue did last year, Ball replied, "I'm always looking to do a better job and put a statement performance on." Doheny, 26-5, with 20 knockouts, said it was a crack at Ball's title that incentivized him, and that he is ready to feed off the energy brought by Ball's crowd. It's straight back at the top level again. That's the stuff that gets you going, said the 38-year-old challenger. I don't think the crowd will service as the fountain of youth for TJ Doheny, but perhaps the fact that this fight is at 126, whereas the last one was at 122, that he doesn't have to cut the extra 4. That might help. Doheny continued, "I put all that shit, the loss to Inoue, with which he withdrew with a back injury, behind me. It was raw at the time. When you're coming off an injury loss, when you've had a shot at the undisputed championship, and someone says you lost because you didn't want it, that's a different story. I've put it behind me. I'm relaxed. I'm ready to get going on Saturday night." Ball and Doheny had swapped heated messages after the Inoue fight, but the visitor knows that Ball, coming off strong performances against Ray Vargas, Ray Savage, and Ronnie Rios, is a solid champion. Everyone's full of confidence in Ball. He's a good little fighter. He's not a world champion for nothing. But I'm confident in my ability. I've got the camp behind me. Words don't mean anything now. It's the action on Saturday night that's going to be the tell-all, he said. I don't think Nick's overlooking me, but it's all these numpties in the boxing media who haven't a clue about boxing. They're all just excited about Inoue versus Ball in the future, and this and that. He's not silly. He knows he's got a hard night's work in front of him on Saturday night. But when you get asked the question, you've got to answer it, and you've got to answer it with confidence. And that's the way I'm looking at it. Anybody knows when you're in there with me, you've got a hard night's work. Overlooking it or not, I'm very confident in my boxing ability. I've got a massive bag of tools, and I think I've got everything to neutralize the wrecking ball, Nick Ball. Important particulars in association with the match. Because it's at 126 and not 122, for a 38-year-old fighter like TJ, not having to cut that extra 4 pounds to make the weight may result in a fighter that has a little bit more to give on the night. That's one. It took Inoue approximately 7 rounds to finally get TJ out of there, and Inoue's approach is a lot more measured than what you get from Nick Ball. Inoue knew that TJ was looking for a big counter, so he respected that, at least enough that he didn't come barging through the front door like Nick Ball does.
That's two.
Nick Ball's methodology, being that aggressive, come-forward pressure fighter, is a gift and a curse depending on the man opposite the ring. So it's possible that he walks into something hard from TJ, or it's possible he dispatches TJ quicker than he knew he did because he's nowhere near as subtle, nowhere near as patient or methodical. He's a pressure guy. Pressure guys are not subtle.
I like Nick Ball to win the fight, and I like him to win by way of knockout. It's just a question of how does he look from the opening round till the time he gets TJ out of there. If he does get him out of there, I think he can.
This will be Nick Ball's second consecutive fight in his hometown of Liverpool in front of all of those supportive Liverpudlians. Nick Ball is the only guy doing this at featherweight.
The only guy headlining his own shows in front of a hometown crowd, and it's not a one-off. He did that in his last fight. He's doing that again on Saturday.
That lets you know he's got some star power, some drawing power, because he's not being outsourced to a foreign country like Angelo Leo is for his next fight, and he's not boxing on anybody's undercard like Rafael Espinoza or Stephen Fulton before him.
I saw the good people at Boxing Scene ask, who's the best of the four featherweight champions? That really has yet to be decided. I would favor Rafael Espinoza to beat them all if he got the chance to fight them all. But as far as drawing power, who's worth some money? Oh, that's Nick.
Because he's headlining his own shows, he's in his own main events, in his own neck of the woods. And the other three champions ain't doing that.
He said he wants to fight Stephen Fulton about a week ago, ahead of this weekend's fight. I could go for that.
Question is, would Stephen Fulton be willing to travel again, given what happened to him the last time he did that? Or will Turkey pick up such a fight and add it to one of his Riyadh Season or Ring Magazine shows? We'll see. We'll see beyond this weekend's fight, where I anticipate Nick Ball will win by way of knockout.
In men's lightweight news, veteran manager Aegis Klimas, who handles the career of Vasyl Lomachenko, who still is IBF champion, he had this and that to say about a potential Gervonta Davis fight and a potential Shakur Stevenson fight.
He said Tank is a much better fighter, I think. Shakur is a very good fighter, but he goes in a shell, he walks away, runs away. Tank comes to fight. He's more interesting, much more intriguing. Right now for Lomachenko, the best opponent to fight.
I know what he said, but that's not how I heard it.
That's not the message that came across as I read through Aegis Klimas's recent comments. That it's not so much that one fighter is better than the other, but one fighter is trickier than the other, more frustrating than the other. That if you go in there with Shakur, you're going to have to chase him because he won't stay in one spot. Whereas Gervonta, because he's a puncher, he's likelier to try for punches, big ones. Now, I don't think Aegis is a bad guy. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't think he made those comments in good faith. That he wasn't really saying what he meant. Now, they had the opportunity to fight Gervonta Davis last year, but they walked away from it. Vasyl Lomachenko has a back injury or something.
Contemplating retirement, whatever. But he hasn't actually announced his retirement, nor has he dropped the red belt, the IBF title. He still is IBF champion.
So are we to interpret these recent comments from Aegis Klimas as Team Lomachenko warming up to the idea that they should box Gervonta Davis? That where they walked away from it last year because he wants to retire, they might want to do it now. He did just look human with Lamont Roach, who's not, nor has he ever been, the same level of fighter as a Vasyl Lomachenko. Vasyl Lomachenko's what, 37, 38 years old?
You don't think they're pushing it?
Was Manny pushing it when he fought an unbeaten Keith Thurman? He was up there in age too, but look what happened. Gervonta Davis only warmed up to the idea of fighting Vasyl Lomachenko because he knows the guy's up there in age and he's thinking about retiring. In turn, it would seem that Lomachenko has warmed up to the idea of fighting Gervonta because he just looked like shit with Lamont Roach.
Lamont Roach is not, nor has he ever been known as a big puncher. And I would say that Lomachenko is a bigger puncher than him. Not that Loma's a knockout merchant, because he isn't, but he's more of a knockout merchant than Lamont.
With more tools in his tool bag, a more well-schooled amateur, and a more decorated fighter overall, in every facet, to where now he might be thinking, maybe I should take that Gervonta Davis fight. There was a story immediately after the Lamont Roach draw that Gervonta's people reached out to Loma's people for a potential fight later on in the year, presumably after the Lamont Roach rematch.
Which I'm now hearing is set to go down in June.
I don't think they initially planned on coming back that soon. Planned on coming back in June, but now they are.
That gives Loma a chance to come back, have a tune-up, then go straight into the Gervonta Davis fight that we've been waiting on for something like 7 years.
He doesn't have a mandatory challenger installed yet, but rumor has it that Raymond Muratalla and Zaur Abdullaev are set to fight very soon for that position.
So he's free up until that fight goes down.
Gotta see when that happens and how that lines up with a potential Gervonta Davis showdown in either the fall or winter months. But in short, I don't think Aegis Klimas, when he said what he said what he meant. I think that behind the scenes, they've warmed up to fighting Gervonta because he just looked like crap with Lamont.
When he says that Gervonta is a better fighter than Shakur, that's not what he means.
He's a more beatable fighter than Shakur. Doesn't present as challenging a style. Not as pesky. Not as frustrating.
That's what I think he meant.
Shakur Stevenson's height, length, and mobility, you might have to chase this guy around the ring on 38-year-old legs for 36 minutes, whereas with Gervonta,
he's not as hard to catch. I mean, Lamont Roach caught him a couple of times.
So maybe Vasyl Lomachenko, even at 37 or 38, however old he is now, maybe Vasyl Lomachenko can do a little better than that. And maybe what all of this is them warming up to the idea that they might want to do this before he calls it a career.
He got the draw. Everyone, kind of like you and Spence, I'll compare it to you and Spence, wants to see Tank and Shakur. It would be this generation's Thurman Spence in some ways. If that fight still happens, how does that go? Does the shine go off a Tank because what happened against Lamont or the familiarity he had? Maybe it was closer than a lot of people even thought it would be. Give me Tank and Shakur real quick.
I still think Shakur hasn't beaten people like Tank. I mean, Shakur hasn't even been in with Isaac Cruz.
Well, the WBC ordered that fight, and Isaac walked away from it.
Come on. I get it on like some boxing level stuff, but I really don't get it. I don't. Do something, bro. Do something, bro.
What can he do? He can't force these guys to fight him, either Gervonta Davis or his opponents.
What have you done? Who have you fought? Who have you beaten? Tank's got names, bro.
What names? The names of guys who willfully pass on fighting Shakur Stevenson, like Isaac Cruz, who was ordered to fight Shakur Stevenson for the WBC title and chose to walk away so that he could box on undercards.
You ain't got no time for a Shakur Stevenson, but you have time for Yuriorkis Gamboa? For Giovanni Cabrera?
Angel Fierro? Which one of these guys is supposed to be a better scalp than Shakur Stevenson? And what fights pay better?
It's the same with Frank Martin. He was ordered to fight Shakur Stevenson. Those negotiations happen, and he's another guy who walked away.
And don't tell me that it was to go fight Gervonta Davis, because in between the time he pulls out of that fight and the time the Davis fight happens, there was plenty of time to fight Shakur. It wasn't an either-or situation. You didn't fight Shakur because you didn't think you would win, so that when it doesn't happen, Keith can blame Shakur.
Saying that he hasn't fought anyone.
This is what you guys did to Terrence Crawford.
Tank's been in the fire.
The fire? What fire? The fires of Rolly Romero?
I don't think Shakur's been in the fire, man. You know? I think this matchmaking is way weaker than just resumes, you know? People see a skill set, yada, yada, yada. I get it, but word on the street is that boy's been slapped.
So you're trying to say that he's soft? Gervonta Davis took a knee in front of the whole world because a little bit of hair grease got in his eye. Is he supposed to be the tough one?
Like, I don't know. I don't like, it's really hard for boxers like that.
You're damn right it is, because he has the misfortune of campaigning in an era of cowardly boxers that don't believe in themselves. Because just imagine if Julio Cesar Chavez chose not to fight Meldrick Taylor because he's a mover, if he chose not to fight Pernell Whitaker because he was a finesse fighter. That's the logic these fighters are employing. fighters like Isaac Cruz, fighters like Frank Martin, that Gervonta Davis's opponents are just as protected as Gervonta, who you claim has been in the fire, who you claim has a better resume than Shakur.
Shakur beat the guy who beat Lamont Roach.
Lamont Roach, who Gervonta Davis just drew with. Lamont Roach, who a lot of people think beat Gervonta Davis. This is not a triangle theory.
You're telling me this kid's resume is no good? Jamel Herring is a better name than Lamont because he literally beat Lamont, where Gervonta didn't.
He literally didn't. Not on the judges' scorecards, and certainly not in the court of public opinion. In that arena, he lost.
This is why I don't got this deep veneration for boxers and the things that they say, because they're just as full of shit as anybody else.
You think he doesn't know what he's doing? He's towing the line. Keith Thurman is towing the company line, pretending that these fighters that Gervonta has fought are either bigger names or better fighters than the fighters that Shakur has fought.
So how come they won't fight him? They won't fight Shakur, but they'll fight lesser fighters for less money than they'd make fighting Shakur. Make it make sense.
Isaac literally walked away from a Shakur Stevenson fight to turn around and fight Giovanni Cabrera?
And on an undercard.
Well, because Shakur Stevenson moves too much, as opposed to Giovanni Cabrera.
See, this is the same kind of decision-making they used against Terrence Crawford. They try to freeze him out, they refuse to fight him, so that when he doesn't get those fights, they'll say he hasn't fought anyone. It's the exact same thing.
I'm not even big on pure boxers, like Shakur Stevenson. Quite honestly, I don't like pure boxers, but what I like, even less than that, are the lame excuses.
The cowardice.
I'm not going to call it something else because these guys fight for a living, because we're talking about pugilists. When you don't want to fight this guy, it's because you think you're going to lose. It's that simple.
2 + 2 is always 4.
It doesn't matter who you ask, whether you're a mathematician or a student. And the same applies here, whether you're a fighter or a spectator in what is a spectator sport. The truth is the truth through and through. And the truth is, they don't want to fight him because they're scared they're going to lose.
His opponents are just as protected as he is, so they can, in effect, protect his reputation. Because if one of these guys that gave him a hard time goes out there and gets beat easy, it makes him look bad.
Well, Ryan Garcia is fighting Rolly Romero.
That one doesn't count because they're both common opponents to Gervonta. They don't care who wins.
They figure it makes him look good either way since he fought them both. And so they let it happen. I'd say that the scalp of Oscar Valdez is a better scalp than the vast majority of scalps on Gervonta's resume, and he's a bigger draw than most of them. He's a bigger draw than Rolly Romero, than Isaac Cruz. Oh yes, he headlines his own shows.
Two-weight champion.
Isaac wasn't a headliner, he still isn't. Neither was Frank Martin, neither was Rolly Romero.
Those were undercard fighters. So was Mario Barrios when you fought him. He was an undercard fighter, a nobody. You just pretended like he was a somebody afterwards.
Like what you're doing now with Lamont Roach. Except Lamont Roach got beat by Jamel Herring, who got stopped by Shakur Stevenson. And you're telling me he's the one with the weak resume. You're full of shit, Keith.
Full of it.